I just set a curse on myself. You know that feeling? The one where you do something impulsively and immediately regret it? That's where I was when I muttered the words that cursed me. I didn't know it at the time, of course. I thought it was just superstition, a silly ritual I found on an obscure forum in the dead of night. Something to pass the time, to distract me from the mess my life had become. It started as a joke. Want to place a curse? The post read. Find the heaviest book in your house, turn to page 333, close your eyes, and speak the first line you see. It was the sort of thing people comment on to scare themselves a little, maybe even take a funny screenshot to send to a friend. But that night, sitting alone in my dark apartment, I felt this urge to try it. I just lost my job, my relationship had crashed and burned, and my sleep was shot. What harm could a little curse do? I grabbed an old dictionary off the shelf. The thing weighed a ton, something my mom had picked up at a yard sale years ago and dumped on me when she cleaned out her basement. I opened to page 333, took a deep breath, closed my eyes, and read aloud. May this mark remain. As soon as I spoke the words, I felt a strange sensation, like a cool breeze brushing across my neck. I laughed, feeling ridiculous, and closed the book. The apartment was still, silent, but there was something different. The air felt heavier, pressing in like an invisible weight. I told myself it was nothing, just my mind playing tricks on me. But when I went to bed that night, the shadows in my room seemed darker than usual, thicker, like they were watching me. The next day, I found a strange bruise on my wrist. It was dark, almost black, and oddly shaped. When I touched it, it didn't feel like a bruise. It felt hard, like a scab that wasn't quite ready to fall off. I figured I must have knocked my arm against something, so I brushed it off and went about my day. But the bruise didn't go away. In fact, by the next morning, it had spread. Now it looked like a small mark circling my wrist, a faint black ring. I tried scrubbing it, thinking maybe I'd gotten paint or ink on me somehow, but it didn't budge. If anything, it just made my skin ache. Every night, I'd wake up around 3:33 a.m., sweating and out of breath, and I'd feel this presence in my room, like something heavy and dark crouching just out of sight. The mark on my wrist continued to grow, snaking up my arm like ink, crawling over my skin. It was no longer a bruise, it was more like writing. I had tried to be rational about it, telling myself it had to be a skin condition or some kind of allergic reaction. But deep down, I knew what it was. I'd set a curse on myself. I went back to that forum, scrolling through the comments, hoping to find someone who had done the same thing, who knew how to stop it. But the post was gone. I checked my browsing history, but there was nothing. No record of the page I'd visited, no trace of the forum. It was as if it had never existed. Desperation took over. I started looking into curse-breaking rituals, reading every obscure book and online guide I could find. I tried salt circles, burning herbs, speaking to whatever unseen force might listen, but nothing worked. Every night, I'd wake up at 3:33 a.m. to that same creeping dread, and the mark would grow a little more. Then, one night, as I was scrubbing the mark on my arm until my skin was raw, I noticed something strange. The black lines formed a word, faint but legible. It read, "Remember." I started losing chunks of time after that. One moment I'd be at my desk, staring at my computer screen, and the next I'd be somewhere else, with no idea how I'd gotten there. Once, I came to standing in my closet, clutching the dictionary. Another time, I found myself at the edge of a bridge, the wind biting into my face, the water dark and still below. The words on my arm multiplied, covering my skin with lines of text I couldn't decipher. It was an old language, something ancient that felt alive, shifting beneath my skin like it was trying to crawl out. One morning, I woke up and found myself surrounded by mirrors. I dragged every reflective surface in my apartment into my bedroom and arranged them in a circle around my bed. In each mirror, I could see myself, but it wasn't me. My reflection stared back with hollow eyes, a twisted smile on its face, lips mouthing words I couldn't hear. The bruising had reached my face now, dark tendrils snaking up my neck and along my jawline, words circling my throat like a noose. By this point, I knew I was losing it. I stopped going out, stopped answering calls. My friends thought I was ghosting them. My family thought I'd moved out of town. I was becoming a ghost in my own life, bound to the curse I'd brought on myself. I tried one last thing, a ritual I'd read about in an old folklore book. It was dangerous, but I was desperate. I needed to confront the curse, to speak with whatever I'd summoned that night. The ritual required a mirror, a single black candle, and blood. My blood. I set it up, staring into the mirror as I whispered the words. The candle flickered, casting long shadows across my face, and the room grew cold. I felt that familiar weight pressing down on me, that oppressive, suffocating dread. Then, the reflection in the mirror moved on its own. It smiled, a slow, twisted grin, and whispered in a voice that was barely audible, yet so close it felt like it was inside my head, "May this mark remain." The shadows thickened, swallowing me whole, pulling me into the dark. The last thing I saw was my reflection grinning back at me, the curse fully realized, bound to me forever. I live in that darkness now, trapped in a world of shadows and whispers, my body a canvas for words I cannot understand. The curse remains, and I know now that it always will. I wish I could tell you this was all just a bad dream, but it's not. And if you're ever tempted to curse yourself, don't.